The handcuffs clicked on our HOA president, while the cameras were still rolling. 5 minutes earlier, she was smiling into a microphone, calling me a trespasser. 5 minutes later, she was screaming at a speaker on her lawn as the sheriff read the charges. And the lake breeze made the boom mic sway. And if you've ever been talked down to by someone who treats rules like a weapon, you know exactly why I'm telling this. I'm Caleb Brooks, a widower with a cedar cabin at Maple Key Lake and a pocket where I still keep my wife Lily's lucky red bobber. The trail to our dock has been in county records since my granddad's time. A clean old easement that starts at the birch trees and ends where the water goes glassy at sunrise. So the morning I finally worked up the nerve to go back after losing Lily, I turned off the gravel with my coffee steaming and the radio barely up, and drove my bumper straight into poured concrete. Not a chain, not a cone. Real rebar and powder-coated signs that looked like they were installed by someone who wants a fight. Private access, Pine Hollow HOA, President Deborah Klein, and behind the new metal, they'd stapled a weathered survey like a trophy. So I did the only thing a man does when truth needs legs. I took pictures, then more pictures. I read the coordinates out loud into video and sent everything to my email and to my neighbor Janet, because timestamps don't blink. At 6:02 the next morning, my bell rang. Like someone owned the sunrise blazer. Sharp glasses clipboard. She didn't say hello, just slid a pink slip onto my mat with one finger. $500 for unauthorized use. Next step, removal of unpermitted structure. Her eyes cut past me toward the lake like a hawk. And when I said our easement predates the HOA, she smiled like a dentist. Produce it until then. Stay off. We'll tow anything tethered to it. Then she took a photo of my house number and turned on her heel like she had a schedule to keep. She invited me to discuss things like civilized neighbors at noon. So I went, and her living room looked like a planning office aerials on foam board survey lines. In red, a family tree taped to the wall with green highlighter. Bleeding through the paper, she offered water. I didn't touch and started a speech she'd rehearsed. Your grandfather convinced poor May Harper to sign away access. In 1989, I'm righting an old wrong. Permits are filed. The county knows her voice was smooth. Her binder had tabs. My faith in my own memory wobbled for a second, because dates and stamps can do that to you. And out the back windows, a man in a faded cap kept pacing like a ghost, trying not to be seen. Rick, she snapped without looking, do not touch that gate again. He flinched and vanished. The letters multiplied, courtesy. Notice encroachment warning, a bright sheet taped crooked to my screen door. Remove all structures crossing HOA property lines by 5 p.m. tomorrow. So I kept my head down and my camera up phone at 41%. Every few minutes, I hit send to myself and to Janet, building a chain a mile long. And if you've ever been boxed in by someone who learned the system better than you know that small, hot, determined feeling in your chest. You know what I mean. 2 days later, my skull lit up from the inside, a headache so sharp, the counter felt like it was tilting earlier. Deborah had said, with that bright tone, "You look flushed, Mer Brooks, hydrate," and offered a bottled water from a cooler by her chair. I'd declined, but back home after another round of photos, I filled a glass from my kitchen faucet and emptied it without thinking. Within minutes, the floor moved sideways, and my next clear memory was a white ceiling and Dr. Singh's voice steady as a level. Brooks, your labs show elevated heavy metals. This is not incidental. This looks like repeated exposure. Lying there with an IV ticking, I replayed the last 2 weeks, the rinsed coffee mug, the long, quiet evenings when thirst felt like progress, and when I called Janet, she didn't gloat. She said I followed her. Tuesday mornings, Greenhaven Lodge, flowers, and a stack of forms. And then she said the line that rearranged the furniture in my head. May is alive. I tried to sit up too fast, and the room punished me. Alive, I said. Alive, Janet said. And confused, I have audio. May asks who Deborah is, while Deborah calls her mom. Staff believe it. And Janet had photos of Deborah leaving Greenhaven, then driving to 2 other facilities on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Like it was a route, different. Colored tabs peeking from manila envelopes, license plates, and times written in tiny block letters. So it wasn't just a trail they were hunting. It was people. The county tested my well, and I'm not going to describe methods because the wrong ears don't need instructions. I'll just tell you someone had tinkered with the system that feeds my kitchen, and when Janet showed Rick those photos, he folded like wet cardboard. She makes me, he said, hands shaking. She holds the mortgage, the truck, the accounts. She says jump, and I ask how high. I never wanted anyone hurt. And then he said the part that made the room feel small. There are other installs, other houses. 3 counties. A deputy served me a protective order while the hospital band was still on my wrist. Polite voice eyes. Sorry, but the paper said I couldn't contact Deborah or Rick or come within 200 meters of Greenhaven. Reason listed as harassment and instability. They used my own lab results to paint me as dangerous, and it was dazzling in the ugliest way. Not the truth, but the confidence of the lie. Yeah, that happened. Janet got me a lawyer named Tasha, who doesn't do speeches. She does files. She stacked Janet's photos. Rick's shaky statement. My well report and my grandfather's easement into a clean packet, and slid it to Agent Cole. Haynes, crew cut 0 theatrics. If this crosses county lines, we move, he said. Then asked if I could stomach a camera if it pinned Deborah to her story in public. I told him I wasn't built for TV, he said. You won't have to perform. Let her perform. You just survive it. So Channel 12 rolled a live truck onto a cul-de-sac next to a lawn. So perfect you could eat off it cables. Snaked through grass, bored members. Played at being curious neighbors. Deborah came out in navy like she was headed to a fundraiser, and during sound check, she told the reporter in a tone dipped in concern. It's so sad. What grief can do to a mind, then. The red light blinked, and Nina asked the soft opener, Miss Klein, you've said the Brooks family is using a trail that belongs to your late mother. Can you tell our viewers what happened? And Deborah sang her tune, Predatory Sale Legacy Protection Permits, and process binder angled to catch the sun. People at home probably nodded. Then came the knife. You can only dodge if you're telling the truth. When exactly did your mother pass, and who in your family can confirm those arrangements? A tiny flicker in Deborah's eyes, February 2019. Estranged siblings. Thank you, and Nina took one small step back as a woman in a windbreaker walked into frame with a clutch of documents and a photo of a young nurse. My name is Joanne Harper. May is my mother. She is alive at Greenhaven, and she has no daughter. Named Deborah. Deborah's. Laugh sounded like a chair scraping tile. Security, she called to nobody, and Joanne didn't blink. She listed plain facts like a recipe. Birthday and maiden name. The hymn May hums when she's nervous, her insulin dosage twice a day, and you could feel viewers at home lean forward. The binder performance had just met the person who spent holidays counting drips by a hospital bed. Nina nodded to the audio guy, and a speaker popped to life with a recording that was grainy enough to feel real and clear enough to land Deborah's voice to Rick. If he keeps getting sick, he'll stop showing up once the trail is quiet. We move on the paperwork. Someone in the crowd exhaled, like they'd been underwater. Deborah lunged at the speaker. Fake, edited illegal slander. She kicked the power strip and stumbled, and Rick stepped forward like a man finally walking through a door he'd stared at for years. I did the installs, he told the camera. She told me how high to jump and I jumped. I'm not jumping anymore. Then he turned to me and said, I'm sorry. In a way. You don't fake. Janet raised a thumb drive, and her spiral notebook thick with dates. The Greenhaven administrator explained how visitor permissions had been forged to keep the real daughter out, the HOA board. Went quiet in that special way groups do when they realize the spotlight is hot, and pointed. The other direction, and Sheriff Monroe arrived, measured and calm. Rid the charges like he'd practiced them twice: identity theft, elder exploitation, aggravated assault by contamination, conspiracy to defraud. Then Agent Haynes stepped in. Federal jurisdiction is quiet and final, and the cuffs went on. Papers from Deborah's binder blew into the grass and stuck to the concrete. She'd ordered. The crowd didn't clap. They just listened to a tiny metal click that sounded an awful lot like a door closing. Victory doesn't taste like sugar. Sometimes it tastes like lake water and copper and a long silence where you finally let yourself believe you weren't crazy. I didn't fist pump. I put my hand in my pocket and felt Lily's bobber and watched a woman who thought bylaws were a spotlight learn that truth can be a switch. A week later, a letter came from another county with a story that sounded too familiar. A woman with flowers and forms, a mother who couldn't remember signing anything, a trail that suddenly belonged to a committee that didn't exist last spring. It was postmarked before our broadcast, which means, while I'm standing in my third act, someone else is still stuck in their first. And that's why I'm telling this to you, like we're on the same porch. The barriers came out not because of a miracle, because once a lie loses its center, everything built around it goes soft. The clerk emailed my granddad's easement with a little note I saved in 3 places. I walked the trail at sunrise and let my feet go numb over the water. I felt seen, not invincible. And here's my takeaway. For anyone who's ever been patronized into silence, keep your camera rolling, keep your neighbors close, back your files. Up in 2 places you can't accidentally water. Ask to see the dates. Ask who notarized what. You don't have. To be loud, to be strong. You can be exact. You can be unshakable in the way you keep your proof clean. And if you're wondering whether HOAs are good or bad, I'll push you a little. They're people, and people either serve or they shine a light on themselves. Our makes a terrible hobby. It makes a decent test. I'm going to end right where the cuffs clicked and the paper fluttered and the lake breathed like it had been holding its breath for years. And I'll hand the mic to you. Where do you draw the line between community standards and control? If a president blocks a family path that was promised by law? Is that order or theft if someone brought you proof that a stranger was pretending to be your parent's child to force signatures? Would you go quiet or go public? Tell me what justice should look like when people hide behind paperwork. Take your story, your disagreement. I'll be down there, reading bobber in my pocket, ready to hear where you stand.